Yeah, I'm sorry about that, guys. I think I've run out of space and the video just sort of cut out. So this is around about a day later, and we got as far as the Doctor, the Widow, and the Wardrobe, didn't we? The Christmas special, which I have to say, I sat and watched that one. And it had a very meaningful little message, and it had some very good stars in it as well. Yeah, it was a nice little story. Now, the Sarah Jane Adventures, I've not actually seen any of these, so I can't really comment on them. But obviously, because it's a little spin off of Doctor Who, and to be honest, out of all the assistants that I've ever known, she was always my favourite. But obviously, around about, I was getting on for about 15 years ago, we lost her through cancer, unfortunately. So at some stage, I am going to be able to catch up with this. There are a couple of appearances from former doctors in it, i.e., David Tennant and Matt Smith, and also Katie Manning. So yeah, I will have a little bit of a catch up on this. And then we're going on to Series 7, which marks the departure of Rory and Amy. Obviously, this is the stories in this are the Asylum of the Daleks, which is a very good one. Dinosaurs on a Spaceship. Everybody's got to remember that one. A Town Called Mercy, which is, I think, where he starts to realise that he's not going to hang on to Rory and, Rory and Amy. The Power of Three, and Angels Take Manhattan, which is obviously seeing the end of his association with Rory and Amy, because they're taken out of time by the Weeping Angels, unfortunately. There is a few little sort of mini episodes. You've got Pond Life, Asylum of the Daleks prequel, and the Making of the Gunslinger. So that's a little behind the scenes episode. And then the second part of the season brought us the introduction of Clara. Now, I have to say, she's another favourite of mine. Jenna is a fantastic actress, and this actually sort of played into it from the series when I actually originally watched it. Had the Snowman, the Bells of St John, the Rings of Akhenaten, which I do remember. Clara's White Christmas, Vasta Investigates, Children in the Children Need the special, which is just before he meets Clara. He does actually meet her as a little girl. The Great Detective, which is a little behind the scenes thing of Mercy episode. The prequel to St. Bells of John, and then obviously the actual episodes of Cold War. Now that was a pretty good one because it actually reintroduces the Ice Warriors. Hyde, now that is a very spooky one. Journey to the Centre of the TARDIS, it was a particularly powerful episode. Crimson Horror, that's a good one. Nightmare in Silver, obviously where they meet up with the Cybermen again. Name of the Doctor, obviously, because he's got a hidden secret, as it were. So, yeah, that leads in to the 50th anniversary episode. Obviously, the Day of the Doctor, where he's reunited with his former selves, i.e. the 10th Doctor, and obviously an incarnation which he's tried to keep hidden, is the War Doctor, as played by the late great John Hurt. And the reason they brought John in was because they did ask Chris Eccleston to come back, but he didn't wish to be associated with it, because as we all know, him and RTD had a big falling out. But it is a very, very good episode. Plenty of twists and turns in it, and if you haven't seen it, I'd heartily recommend it. Then that leads on to Matt Smith's final episode, The Time of the Doctor. And normally the Time Lords only have 12 lives, but it turns out Clara pleads with the Time Lords to save him, and he's granted another 12 regenerations. So obviously at the end of it, she bumps into him again, remarking how young he looks again, but he said, "This is just the reset. it started, and nothing can stop it now. And obviously he ends up regenerating into the 12th Doctor, i.e. Peter Capaldi. So there you go. And then we go on to series 8, which introduces Peter Capaldi, which is a slightly darker Doctor. And also, not only that, we've got a new incarnation of the Master, i.e. Missy. I love Michelle Gomez as Missy. She's such a mischievous character, but she has a certain amount of sympathy, and he tries to sort of bring her around, as it were, from all that she's done. And I think there is a dynamic between Jenna and Peter in this one, actually, to be honest with you, towards the end. Although I've not seen a lot of Peter's episodes. So, as you can see, this one's still shrink-wrapped. So, at some stage, I am actually going to get around to watching them. But I'm actually making a sort of chronological go through all the Doctors at the moment. So, that's going to take some time before I get to Peter. Anyway, on from that, you've got series 9. Oh, you've got the Christmas special, Last Christmas. Whereby I think they're both overtaken by some sort of form of life, but it turns out Santa does exist. So, yeah. Their lives are nearly taken towards the end of that, but there you go. I've not actually seen this one, so this is one I've got to watch. Again, as I say, I didn't see a lot of Peter's season. This is the very last season he did with Jenna, because it marked the departure of Jenna as well. So we got episodes 1 to 6 here, which were released. Series part 1, which is the same with the series. Obviously got Michelle Gomez back into the fray with Jenna. The Daleks come back into it as well. So you got the Magician's Apprentice, The Witch's Familiar, Under the Lake, Before the Flood, The Girl Who Died, and The Woman Who Lived. So yeah. And then we've got part 2. There are 1 or 2 episodes where Peter's on his own, because obviously Clara's sacrificed herself to save the Doctor. So we got the Zygon invasion, which he did his well-known famous speech, which I've actually seen on clips time and time again. Very good one. It's not a series I've actually seen a lot of. Sleep No More, Face the Raven. Now, I did actually see that one, and I'm not kidding you. I cried my ruddy eyes out at the end of that one when Clara sacrifices herself. And then he goes on to try and save her from her last moment in life. So you've got Heaven Sent, and then Hell Bent. So, yeah, where he ends up actually losing his memory of her, as it were, in order to save her. And then you got another Christmas special, The Return of Dr. Mysterio. Now, again, I haven't actually seen this one, so I will get around to watching it. Because, unfortunately, a lot of these were on when I was still at work at the time. And from that, we had a spin-off, which unfortunately wasn't very successful. There was only the 1 series, although Big Finish have done a number of these on audio, which is called Class. So that's set at the original school that Clara worked at. So, and she's put in a hall of memoriam, as it were. And the first episode does actually feature Peter Capaldi as the 12th Doctor, which sets things in motion. As I say, it was a bit of a flop, unfortunately. And then we go on to The Husbands of River Song. That one I did actually watch, and it actually ends up with him taking her to the last place he was meant to be, where he gave her that sonic screwdriver, which his earlier incarnation has no recollection of her, and obviously he sends her back in time, as it were, to that moment in time, because he knew what was going to happen to her. And then obviously this was the start of Peter Capaldi's final season with Bill Potts, i.e. What was the girl's name? Pearl Mackie. Again, you had Michelle Gomez in it, and there's some very strong performances by Peter in this. I did watch 1 or 2 of the episodes, but I didn't see the whole series, as it were. But it was a good dynamic between him and Pearl. And then obviously this was the very last part of that season. Part 2. Obviously got Nadal as well, played by oh god, where are we? It doesn't actually mention his name. Matt Lucas. Yeah, Matt Lucas. Very talented actor and a very talented writer as well. And then obviously she ends up being killed and turned into the Mondasian Cyberman, and obviously we got the former Master coming back to reunite with Missy, but he implores Missy to try and save people towards the end, although he knows he's going to die. And then obviously we come along to the very last one, Twice Upon a Time, where the 11th Doctor actually comes into contact with his first incarnation, i.e. played by David Bradley. That's who I was trying to think earlier when I was looking at the Travels in Space and Time. And David Bradley's actually done a series of First Doctor adventures on Big Finish, so check that out. But it's a good one for Peter to end on, actually, to be honest with you. And it's a good, very good story. And the dynamic between him and his third incarnation is pretty good. But in between that, obviously that year, they were celebrating 50 years since the first appearance of the Master. So Big Finish, in order to celebrate that, did a audio called Masterful, where all of the incarnations of the Master reunite. I won't tell you the plot because it will give the game away, but you've also got Jeffrey Reeves, Mark Gatiss, Michelle Gomez, Derek Jacobi, Alex McQueen, who's on some of the audios with Paul McGann, and Milo Parker, Eric Roberts, if you remember from the TV movie, and John Sim. So there you go. But it sounds like it's a good one. I did listen to some of it. It looks like a good one. And then obviously we got the first episode of Missy on one of her own adventures. I think there's about 4 series. I've got the other 3 to collect, actually. So that's the forthcoming thing to listen to. But I just love Michelle Gomez as Missy. She's brilliant. Anyway, moving on from that. Obviously, things changed in around about 2017 because we had our first female Doctor, i.e. in the appearance of the 13th Doctor by Jodie Whittaker. And obviously we had a new showrunner. But unfortunately, as good as Jodie was, it didn't turn out very popular. And obviously then we had COVID, which hit us. And it hit the production of the actual series. I think Jodie tried to make her mark with her own way of playing the Doctor, but it didn't quite turn off because unfortunately there was a lot of backlash. I don't know why, because obviously we turned the Master into Missy, and it was the same thing, so I just don't understand it, but that's my own personal opinion. But she's a very qualified, talented actress, and I loved her as the Doctor. Obviously you had Bradley Walsh in it. She had a team of 3 other assistants as well. The stories, the writing were a bit weak. The only one that I actually really liked was this one, which was, if I can see it, hang on, I can't unfortunately unbox it. I think it was about a well-known activist. That's a bloody good story, that one. But as I say, unfortunately the viewing figures were a bit down. I liked her. And then obviously we had the New Year special, Resolution of the Daleks. I've not actually seen it all, so I can't really comment on it. So we shall see on that. And then obviously we went into season 12 as well with the same old team, although at the end of it Bradley Walsh left along with his son, and we were introduced into the Master, i.e. Where are we? Oh, this actor here. Oh, I've forgotten his damn name. Hang on, I think I've got a audio somewhere. Hang on. Sacha Dhawan. Yes, as a very mischievous Master, and he was an absolute head case. And obviously we had our last appearance of Captain Jack Harkness coming back into it right at the very end. But there are some very potentially good stories. But I say the writing was not cracked up to what it had been. And then obviously we have Revolution of the Daleks, because obviously with COVID hitting, it put a sort of a stunt on the programme until 2021, Christmas 2021, when we had Revolution of the Daleks come back. That's quite a dark story, that one, I have to say, and obviously it featured Captain Jack Harkness, which it was seen was the last appearance of him on the show. I hope he does come back. But then Big Finish just early part of last year announced they were doing some audios of Yaz and the Doctor. I've got Vampire Weekend. I've read out some of the storylines on these before. I haven't listened to any of them yet, but I've heard some good things about them. So we've got Vampire Weekend, Return of the Doctor, Lionesses in Winter, which was a Christmas special this year, Ride or Die. Okay, and we've also got The Violet Hour, which came out a couple of months ago. And this is the latest release, which has just been released this week, called Aegis. But as I say, I haven't actually got around to listening to any of these, because I'm actually going through the collection chronologically. So it might be a while till I do a review on this. But I've heard good reports about these audios. And then honestly, we went on to The Flux, which was a sort of a story arc, as it were. And there were some good potential stories in this. And obviously we had a comedy actor join the team in the guise of John Bishop. So yeah, it was some pretty good stories in this, I thought. Stronger season than most. Obviously you had the Weeping Angels come back, and I think the Cybermen were also featured in this, along with Sacha Dhawan. No, he actually wasn't in it in this season. But there you go. And obviously I've got a couple of audios that Big Finish did with Sacha. I'm hoping they're going to do some more. I've heard good things about these. We've got Inner Demons box set. It says Call Me Master, obviously being his evil twisted self. And then obviously we've got Call Me Master Monsters. So I've got both box sets. Whether Sacha's going to do any more or not, I'm not quite sure. I hope he does, because he's, again, very talented actress, and he's pretty wicked as the Master, actually. And hopefully he might come back in a newer season, but we shall see. And then moving on from that, we come into the last few specials, because obviously it was announced that the showrunner Chris Chibnall was leaving, and RTD was coming back to run the show, and as a consequence Jodie was also leaving. So we had a few specials leading up to the very final story, which is Eve of the Daleks. Again, I've missed that one. The Legend of the Sea Devils, which I did actually watch, and it's not a bad little episode. And then obviously we're coming on to Jodie's final one, as the 13th Doctor, which I thought was the strongest story I've seen her in. The power of the Doctor, whereby the Master overtakes her, forces her to regenerate into himself. So that is a very, very strong story. And obviously she ends up getting hurt by the Master, whose plan has gone awfully wrong and is mortally injured. But there are two former companions in it, in the guise of Ace and Tegan. So there you go. And obviously Sasha's at his most evil, as it were. But she manages to come back and defeat him. Because obviously he's still trying to take over her remaining lives, as it were. And it ends up with her regenerating into the 14th Doctor, i.e. David Tennant. And then we had the 60th anniversary specials with David, and obviously Catherine Tate as Donna and the rest of her family. And there were some very good stories in that, i.e. the Meep, the one where they ended up in the Wild Blue Yonder, and also the Giggle featuring, what's his name, Neil Patrick as, his well-known arch enemy, the Celestial Toy Maker, which forces him, and obviously ends up getting mortally injured, which actually forces him to bi-generate into the 15th Doctor. And as a reward, 14 is left on Earth to start a life, whilst 15 goes off on his adventures. And the very first episode that we had that Christmas, obviously featuring Ncuti Gatwa and the very new assistant Ruby Sunday in the guise of Millie Gibson, was called The Church on Ruby Road, which was a good opener for the two. Now, I'm sorry that Ncuti left, because I thought he was coming into his own after 2 seasons, but obviously the deal with Disney fell through, and obviously Ncuti had opportunities to carry on with his career. Sorry about the warning, that was me new phone. And he was only with us a short time, but I have to say he certainly made an impact for me, and I thought his Doctor was brilliant, to be honest with you, and the storylines were very good. Some may disagree with me, but I thought he was brilliant. And obviously we had the first season, and there were some really good stories in that, I thought. And yeah, you got this which I thought was the Celestial Toy Maker, as it were. Met the Beatles, etc. And at the end of it, obviously, it was all centered around Ruby as well, and she ended up finding her mother, whilst obviously the Doctor went on further travels. But that wasn't the last we saw of Ruby Sunday, though. Anyway, then we came to another Christmas special, the first one in a while, Joy to the World, which I thought was a cracking little story. Nice twits and plots in there, and obviously Ncuti at his best again. Yeah, it wasn't a bad little story, I thought, to be honest with you. And I did sit and watch it. And then obviously we came into the second season of the new Doctor Who genre. Obviously had a new assistant in the guise of Belinda Chandra. And they went off on their various adventures. In fact, one of them was associated with a planet he'd been on before, during David Tennant's era. And again, there were some really good stories, I thought, in this. But I did feel that the very last story was rather rushed and premature for Ncuti to leave. And obviously we had the very, very big surprise regeneration of Billie Piper as possibly the 16th Doctor. So there you go. And that, believe it or not, is the end of my collection. And obviously right here I've got a book called The Doctor, His Life and Times. This was whilst Matt Smith was still the Doctor. It just takes you through the history of the programme, the various Doctors, etc., what happened to each. Now they came to regenerate. So there you go, guys. That is my entire collection of Doctor Who. I will be doing some more videos. Don't rest assured. I know it's been a while, but life has been hectic, etc. And I hope you haven't fallen asleep through this marathon. But I'm going to carry on collecting, and obviously I've got the Big Finish releases still coming. I might do a review on Aegis. I don't know. I might sit and listen to it. I don't know. And I've got other releases I recently got as well from Big Finish. I'll sort of share my thoughts on that as well, and do a video, etc. Any more news, obviously I shall let you guys know. So until then, stay safe, keep well, keep collecting those DVDs and Big Finish audio releases, and let's keep this community going. So until the next time, guys, allons-y, and I'll speak to you soon.